Good morning, good morning, good morning. So today we're going to animate a really basic kind of lightning strike. Fairly simple, and you can kind of stylize it how you want. Here's some reference for lightning while we get started. As you can see, there's lots of forking shapes and lots of dynamic sort of sharp lines and everything. Lightning is very quick, but there's very different ways you can portray lightning. Today it's just one way we can do some lightning, so we're gonna get started. It's fairly simple, so I'm gonna be doing this in Adobe Animate, but you can do this in any software that allows keyframes and onion skinning. So I'm gonna start a new file, 1920 by 1080, standard stuff. The frame rate I'm gonna set is 24, and I'm just gonna go create. We're going to be animating lightning with a white brush, so we want the background to be maybe a dark grey, maybe something kind of mid-tone like this. We're going to change the view to fit in window. That's what I like to do, just so I can resize stuff nice and easily. B for brush. I'm going to name this first layer just rough pass 1, because we always name our layers to stay organized. So this is going to be a kind of stylized lightning strike. This is how I do lightning, so there's probably a number of ways to do it, but I've been animating this for a few years, so I kind of just know how to do it. But we can look at some reference to get some ideas for shapes and everything. But what I'm going to start with, I'm going to get my brush nice and small. So I'm going to press my bracket keys to get that sort of fairly small. So I'm going to use about 3. I'm going to make sure my brush is set to white. And what I'm going to do, I am going to draw like a kind of sharp, squiggly line in a sort of very loose kind of S shape. So from the top to the bottom. And we're going to alternate the thickness of this line. We're going to draw, this is one outline, we can draw another outline. And we're going to introduce sharp kind of cuts and alternate the thickness of this going down. So just every now and then introduce like a sharp little elbow and increase the thickness a tiny bit. It gives it a kind of dangerous look. And we're just going to sort of do a couple of little sparky bits, make it a bit actiony. I'm going to fill this line in. I'm going to press K for my paint bucket. If you find that it's not filling in, it might be that there's a tiny gap somewhere, so you can either choose to kind of draw that in, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to change the gap options down here with the paint bucket. So underneath the palette there's a little square you can change to close the small gaps, and it might still not work because that's too big, but there we go. So I'm going to zoom out. So something a little bit like this. This is our first frame. What we're going to do, we're going to add a blank keyframe after this. So I'm going to press F6. If you want to set your keyboard shortcuts up, you can go to Edit, Show Keyboard Shortcuts if you're on a PC, and then it's Animate Keyboard Shortcuts if you're on a Mac. Insert blank keyframe. So I've got mine set to F6 there. So F6, I'm going to turn my onion skin on just down here. And then for this frame, I am just going to draw one small line following that same shape. But this is this tiny thickness that it's going to be, so it's not going to be any thicker than this. So if I flick between those, you should see thick, thin, thick, thin. And then I am going to do another blank keyframe, and this time we're going to pretty much invert the shape of this lightning strike. So we've got curve going here, and a curve going here. So for this frame, we're going to do a curve there, and a curve there. So we're flipping the shape of this lightning strike to give it a very nice kind of dramatic sort of effect. So I'm just going to kind of just gently do like a jagged line, just following this trail all the way down. Let's get neaten that up a tiny bit. Then same sort of thing, I am just going to kind of alternate the thickness throughout and introduce kind of sharp elbows here and there to give it a dangerous, scary look. And then press K for paint bucket and fill in all these gaps. And then F6 again for new blank keyframe, and I'm just going to draw a single thin line following this same shape all the way down, just kind of loosely doing that same jagged idea. And for this one, I'm going to add another blank keyframe. It's going to reduce my onion skin range just there. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to break up this line. So I'm going to follow what I've done before, but I'm just going to break it up into smaller sections. Like that, and this is going to act as the energy kind of dissipating after this lightning strike. So this is the first part. I'm going to do another blank keyframe, zoom back in, and then on each of these sections I've just drawn, I'm just going to do a tiny little section on the end of each one. And then when we play this back, it's going to look like it's kind of evaporating down this line and kind of just dissipating as it goes. So I'm going to give a bit of a gap at the end of this animation, so I'm going to press F5, which is my shortcut for insert frame. So just give that a nice gap. I'm also going to put a gap at the beginning so we have just a bit of a break to get ready for it and anticipation and everything. So I'm going to press F5 to increase the exposure length of this first frame, and I'm just going to add a normal keyframe, so this second frame here, just by pressing this, and then I'm just going to delete that first frame and increase the exposure for that one as well. So if we play this back, so it's looking pretty good, I think. I want to add a couple of things to it though. I'm going to pick a frame just before the lightning strike starts, add a keyframe in, just using this little button here, and I'm just going to do the start of this lightning strike. So I'm just going to add a little kind of jaggedy shape just at the start. So I've got my onion skin set head so I can see that is. And I'm also, I don't know if you know this, but lightning does actually kind of conduct the ground before you even see it. So I'm just going to do a little shape on the ground here where it's going to hit as well, just to kind of increase that anticipation slightly. You can kind of increase this as much as you want. And something else I'm also going to do is, so this is something you can try out, so it kind of looks fairly sort of convincing at the moment. I am going to increase the exposure of this first thick frame by pressing F5, which is insert frame. I'm going to turn that second frame into a separate drawing, so I'm just going to click this second frame I've got here. Just tap that to turn that into a keyframe so we're not losing the image. And with the stroke work selected, just going to select that frame to make sure you can tell by the dotty appearance. I'm going to change that to black. And I'm going to do the same for the second thick shape. Change that, make it a keyframe with the stroke work selected, change that to black. So now when we play this back, you might not be able to see, let me change the frame rate on here so it matches the recording software. See if that works. So it might be a tad difficult to see on the playback of my video here, but when you add a black frame immediately after a white one, it gives this impression that it's kind of burning your retinas. You do have to be careful if you use this too much and on a big space, because that could induce sensory issues. But I think if you perhaps play it a little bit safe and just use it very, very sparingly, and perhaps on one frame, it can give the impression that your eyes are being kind of burnt by the brightness of this lightning flash. And you can also add glow effects, so depending on what software you've got, you might not be able to do this in all software, but at least in Animate you can click on a frame on your timeline. You can go to filters in the property, and you can go to glow, and you can change the colour, so I might make this kind of a dangerous looking blue, increase the blur so you can see that. I'll just turn my onion skin off there so you can see. So you can see up here it's giving a nice kind of blue glow. So if I click on that frame again to bring those options back up, you can change the strength so it can be really strong or really weak. And then you can click this little cog wheel, go copy all filters, and then you can select all your frames in your timeline, go back up to the little cog wheel and go paste filters, and it'll paste that same effect on all those frames. So you can have this nice kind of glowy lightning idea. And you can add in as many variants of this shape as you want. So this is just two shapes. We've got this first one and then second one, and it ends, but you can kind of have this going on for longer if you wanted to. Maybe you could do one straight down the middle of both of these. You could alternate it up. Maybe you could have the thick line followed by the thin one. And if I make a new blank frame there, I can copy this, Control C or Command C, and then Control or Command Shift V to paste that in exactly the same place, and then change that to black. So we can put the black frame after the thin one, just to give it a very different look. And maybe we can add in a gap. So if I go to the last frame of the first shape, give it a gap, last frame of the second shape, give it a gap, we can add in some extra anticipation. Let's try that on 24 frames a second. So fairly simple. And of course, this is just one way to do a lightning strike. You know, there are many varying ways you can do this, but let me know what yours looks like. If you have Twitter, my tag is here. Just send me a tweet of what yours looks like, and just let me know if you use this video to help you. And that's it for this week. This video was sponsored by my patrons. My other YouTube channel, the Video Game Animation Study one, is still there, and I'll be producing videos not often as I used to, as I'm fairly busy these days doing very different sorts of things. But it is still there, so have a look, check out those videos as well, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.